What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Crush Live Call-Ins. We do this show every Monday, usually right around 5:45 Eastern Time, but we're going early here again this week, and we'll be going early next week at 5 Eastern because I'm playing on TCH Live right after this. They moved it back an hour, so that comes on at 8 Eastern. Just enough time for me to complete this, put up the podcast for the Crush Live Poker subscribers, and head on over to TCH Austin. Well, you know the drill. If you want to get on the show, you can shoot me an email at bard@crushlivepoker.com. Bard@crushlivepoker.com gets you on the show. If you are a Crush Live Poker subscriber, you will get priority, and you will always get a personalized email response from me. And I do get dozens and dozens of these email submissions each week. So especially if you are not a Crush Live Poker subscriber, please keep it concise and brief. I actually had to write a few people back and be like, dude, I get like 40 of these a week. Okay? You don't need to like write me 2,000 words. Just write the fucking hand history. Anyways, let's get it up here for July 12th. And I have a little different lighting setup. I wanted to, when I watch myself sometimes on the call-in shows, on a smart TV, it kind of looks bright, so I'm trying something a little bit different here. So hopefully it's gonna. It always looks good on YouTube, but for whatever reason, when it pops up on the smart TV, it's just sometimes just a little bit bright. But let's get into it here on the show. We got 4 callers here. We're gonna go to the San Francisco area. This is a regular caller. This is Garland, and I believe that Garland has a hand from TCH, or maybe it was Lodge. I'm not sure. Someplace in Austin, right, Garland? Is that right?
It was a Wednesday 1-3 game at the Lodge.
The Wednesday 1-3 game at the Lodge. Okay. How big was that game playing? It's one of the things about Texas is like it can really, really depend on the stack sizes in terms of how big. And then sometimes like you'll play in a 1-3 match stack game, especially at the Lodge. There'll be like 3 or 4 stacks of over 5,000, and then like 2 guys with like under 300. It's a little bit wacky.
Yeah, so this game's not your like normal 1-3, maybe 300 cap game where everyone has a few $100s. Everyone started with $1,000, and then when stack size increased, then people added chips. So it got to the point where there's 3, 4, 5,000 for a lot of players on the table.
Yeah, in essence, it's just like a match stack is uncapped. It's great. I mean, I guess like you could say in the beginning, but they don't even really. I don't understand why they don't just call it uncapped. And the great thing is I put out some tweets this week or this past week. It's a time game at all levels, so it's $10 an hour, which is 5.5. Which you compare that to a California rate. I know that you, Garland, you are from the Bay Area. At least in LA at Commerce and the Bike, it's $8 now at the river across all levels per hand. 8 a hand. It's insane. It doesn't matter how big the pot is. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into it here.
Okay. So it's 1-3 match stack,
Yep.
$1,000 cap, but by that time there was a lot of people at more than that. But anyway, in this particular game, there's a lot of loose raises and a lot of loose 3-betting. So, keep that. It's just a lot more than your normal low stakes game. Pre-flop is a $10 under the gun straddle.
Okay.
The second tightest player at the table, to yours truly, raises to 35.
From the button, right?
From the hijack.
Oh, I thought you were on the button. Folded to
No. The hijack player did raise to 35.
Okay.
And I was on the button.
I see. Hero on button. Okay. Okay.
I have 1,300, and I have black aces. Same black aces as when I called last time.
Okay.
I 3-bet this to 110.
This guy covers you or what?
No, I think I covered him according to what I saw on the stream.
Okay.
He has 1,100, so.
Okay. So hijack with 1,100 to 35 over the top of a 1-3-10 structure. You 3-bet button to 110. Okay.
Right. Small blind, who's somewhat of a loose action player, thinks for like 30 seconds literally 30 seconds, and then he finally calls the 110. So I think he's thinking about 4-betting me or calling. That's my read.
And how deep is he?
1100.
1100 too? Okay. Okay.
Anyway, hijack folds, and your heads up.
All right, so hijack opens at 35. You 3-bet the buttons, so we're about 1100 effective. Black aces to 110. Small blind flat calls, which is you see a lot of this, especially at this level. Flat calling the 3-bet. One of the easiest things to get out of your pre-flop game is taking away the flat calls to 3-bets. Although I think I actually am going to start implementing some of these in my game, depending on who the opener is, because there are certain players that just won't 4-bet unless they've got... I mean, I've talked about this before without aces and kings, and I feel like sometimes I'm playing a little bit too tight in this spot. But the theory goes, you're really not supposed to do a whole lot of flatting here because you open it up to the hijack to 4-bet. But obviously, if the hijack at 4-bet, this would have been great for you, Garland. But okay, so we're heads up, and it looks like the pot's like maybe 260, something like that, right?
69. I put him on a range of, queens and jacks, maybe 10s and 9s, and ace king and ace queen, which I block with my aces pretty. So I'm pretty narrow range.
Yep.
Like I don't see suited connectors or ace X suited. I don't expect to see any of that.
Right. Okay.
No baby pairs either. Probably not.
Okay.
Anyway, flop comes queen diamonds, 4 of clubs, jack of spades.
Queen of diamonds, 4 of clubs, jack of spades. This is not necessarily the best flop for you, as you were talking about when we think about somebody 3-betting, or flat calling to 3-bets. Like, say he's going to 4-bet off kings all the time, and then he's got like queens through 9s. Yeah, I mean, this is not the best flop for you. I mean, also, it's one of these things where it's like, well, 9s and 10s, it's kind of hard for them to continue. And obviously, you're up against a set. You probably still could bet small when check to get like peels from 9s and 10s, ace king, ace 10, things like that. But yeah, you might get yourself into a little bit of an awkward spot.
Yeah, I figure either I'm ahead and the guy has 2 or 4 outs, which I didn't mind keeping, or I'm way behind and I want to lose less money. So I want to win more money when I'm ahead. I'm going to lose less money when I'm behind. I opt to check and just take a chance on the turn.
So here checks back for pot control, right?
Basically, and to induce him to bet a worse hand.
So it's like inducing a bluff slash pot control, things like that. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind it. It's interesting though, because again, I do think that you can probably size small enough here to get called by a lot of those weaker hands. Like, I don't think 9s and 10s are going to fold if you bet like 75, something like that. Maybe, but then you're probably not going to get multiple streets. So I don't mind the play. So you check it back, okay?
Yeah, I figure I can get the value on the turn if nothing scary comes, right?
Yeah.
So I can still get the value. I just get 1 street or so. And I would bet if he checked to me on the turn, but that's not what happens. The 4 of spades comes, pairing the board.
Okay.
Counterfeiting queen jack.
Right.
Yeah, queen jack. I don't think he has queen jack.
Right.
And he leads for a 110.
So he leads for 110 now. And by the way, on the side here, I'm multitasking. I am I'm going to put in the live stream link. They cut this hand up on the Lodge live stream. Like they do these sort of small cuts here, like of all these hands. And I saw this hand. Oh, it's called, and now 1200 reasons not to slow play aces post flop. Here, I'm going to paste it in the in the live chat. So he bets 110 here on the turn, right?
Yeah, he bets 110.
Okay.
Based on my read and the situation, I see nothing else to do but call.
Okay. So, I mean, obviously, if he had queens and jacks, he'd have a boat here. So you make the call. The pot is just a hair under 500, according to my calculation. It is 490. Queen
490, yeah.
Queen 4, jack 4, backdoor spades. Get there. Again, that link in the live YouTube chat. And by the way, too, I'm going to start posting notes on Crush Live Poker. So not only you're going to get the live stream unlisted, but you're going to get notes. So I'll put the YouTube thing in the notes. I know I've been doing that over in Discord, but in the next week or two, we're going to be able to put these Word docs or PDFs right into the web page. So you basically committed 220 to the hand. So you guys have like, maybe 850 to 900 left, right? Like almost 2 pot size bets left, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, the river is the nut worst card. It's the 10 of hearts. So the only worst flop I could get was like a queen jack 10, and now the 10 comes.
Yeah. That's interesting. Okay, and what does he do?
He bets big.
How much?
370.
370. Wow. Maybe I didn't quite absorb this when you were talking to me about this on Discord, because Garland, like I didn't absorb like the very, very large sizing here, because I was like, well, I mean, sort of on the surface, I was like, well, if you're going to check back the flop, you're just going to call down here at the end. Here's my take on this, which is where I kind of think this is really, really interesting. Obviously, you're snap calling like any, river that's not like a 10 or a king, obviously, for this sizing, or like any other sort of blank. The thing that's weird here is that I always talk about, this is similar to when I see somebody donk from out of position, and even in a single race pot, when the board comes a disconnected, say like high blank that fits into the pre-flop raiser's flop check back range, like, the board comes out like 9-6 deuce, and now the turn's a king, and then all of a sudden somebody bets out of the big blind. I always find that strange. Here, this is like, well, you've kind of played this like you have a lot of ace king, although you would probably, I mean, I don't know if this guy knows, but I would assume that you might see bet here with ace king on the flop more so than with aces. But this is what people are thinking, is that, wow, well, if he checks back the flop here, what he's missed with is ace king. So now that the 10 fills ace king and the guy is still going like buck wild here, I mean, here's the thing. It's Texas. It's 1-3. It can't be that bad to call. This is the reason kind of why I picked this one, Garland, too. I appreciate you coming on. I had a late cancellation, but I would probably close my eyes and call. It can't be that big of a mistake from some of the monkey business that I've seen at this level. But what I will say, though, is that it raises my eyebrows that somebody would take this type of sizing when this 10 fits in with ace king.
Yeah, and I may have ace king. Probably have queens in my range as well to protect myself. So I didn't feel like I could be exploited that much on this, but yeah, he really should have thought longer about.
Yeah, Garland, you sort of snap called from, if people want to watch the thing, right?
Yeah, he thought about how long. He thought for a little while about how to bet, and I already had it in my mind that was all. And that was not like pot size, like over pot or something like that.
Right.
It was a mistake. I mean, I should have thought about it. I really should have analyzed the situation and thought about it. I might have called anyway, which I did.
Right.
But I might fold it, because what are his bluffs, right? Ace king gets there, 10 gets there, right? Everything gets there, right? He literally has to have air.
Right. And of course that's not, and the thing is that his air is cut a lot, right, by the pre-flop action. That's for you guys that are CLP subs, I'm actually going to be reading an email for the pod tomorrow, which was an email that it wasn't really good enough. It wasn't a good enough hand to get on here, but it was really good exercise, I feel like, in hand reading. So keep an eye out for that. But you always have to go back to pre-flop, and if you want to get better at poker, you can't wash away from all the information from the hand here. So this is much different than like if it was a single race pot and you open the button and the straddle defended. This is a 3-bet pot. The small blind has a range of hands that he's 3-bet cold calling with. I don't think he's doing this with 5-6 suited, even if he was in there with it pre. So that's really the quandary here. So you ended up calling, and what did he show down?
Black 10s.
Black 10s. Wow, black 10s. So he made 10s full, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I look like a genius if he has jacks or 10s, or the 10 didn't come on the river, right? So.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, if the 10 doesn't come on the river, obviously he's checking to you. I hope you're going to take a really large sizing here at the end.
I don't know, a lot large. Maybe I bet 150 or 175, making him think.
Into 490?
because I want him to call, right? I want him to call with his 10s, the bluff catch or something, right?
Yeah, but if the river's, if the river's a deuce and he checks, people don't usually play overpairs in the manner that you did. I mean, obviously you could have queens or jacks full here too. So I don't know. Whenever I play a hand like this, I like to try to make up for a little bit of lost value if I think that, I have the best hand. I know you're a good enough player where, of course, you would have value bet one check two at the end. And by the way, too, if a queen came on the river, that'd be great for you too, right? Like if a queen or a jack comes and he checks, it's such a slam dunk bet. To the point where like I might even bet larger because you might get called down more by a playing pair, right? Because the board's queen 4, jack 4, and then they'll say like the river's a queen, it's a playing pair like tens or probably not necessarily ace high, but I want to address something in the live chat here really quick because somebody said, well, you're under repped, you have to call. That is, I do have a little bit of a pet peeve with that. I have a few pet peeves with certain things that I think that people don't necessarily you use these terms in like the right way. Number one, capped range, I think is theoretically, it is a legitimate thing that someone can have. People use it wrong 9 times out of 10. The fact that you have to call the river when the turn, when nothing changes, if you call the turn, and then this whole thing of you're under repped meaning what? That the guy's value betting something worse here than aces? I mean, that's really what it is. I mean, now some people say, well, maybe he's got like kings. I don't think that kings is betting like this at the end when ace king comes in.
Not that big for kings.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
If he didn't, I agree with that. So it really is a situation where I'm beat by, like, I expect to lose 75% or something like that percent of the time.
Right. And of course, they give you the little troll on the lodge highlight stream. Don't slow play aces post flop. I just got to laugh.
Well, 90 people would bet the flop with aces, and he would fold.
Yeah.
And no one would say more about it, right? That would be the end of the hand.
Of course. No, of course. But it's your fault though that you slow played and you let him get there, Garland. Anyways, thanks for the call. I appreciate it. Garland is always a great caller. So again, guys, if you want to get on the show, shoot me an email, bart@crushlivepoker.com, bart@crushlivepoker.com with your hand submission. Keep it concise, keep it brief. And I will be playing on TCH Live here tonight in about an hour and a half. So let's go to our next caller here. And this is Zach. Is that right, Zach? In the 443, you are up next.
Correct. How are you?
Good. How's it going, Zach?
Not bad.
Get a hand for us?
Yeah. So this is a 2-5 hand at Maryland Live that I played last week. It's a 300 min 1K cap game. I've been playing, for a while, and the villain in this hand is a new player, inexperienced rec. I know you're not too much into scene setting, but he had just won a really big pot. It was his biggest pot of his life. He was very happy, and it was his first time playing 2-5. So that's about as much background as I'll go into.
But this is a 1-3 game with a 300 cap. Is that right?
2-5, 300 min, 1K cap.
Oh, that's obviously much different. 2-5, 300 min to 1K. So you probably get some deep stacks in this game, right? Late at night.
Yeah. This was actually during the day, which was weird that everybody was deep. Usually not a very good game, but we are his 3.5K effective. This is literally the next hand after he just won a 3.5K pot.
Okay, so 3K effective.
3.5K.
3.5K effective. Okay.
Yep. I am under the gun +1 with the straddle on, and I have Queen Jack of clubs, and I bump it up to 30.
So so you make it 30. So hero +1 with a straddle makes it 30. Okay. Yep.
And then under the gun +2 makes it 85. And everyone folds around to me, and I just flat call.
I remember this hand. Okay. So so you make it you were from +1 or to the immediate left of the straddle. You make it 30. Is that the standard? Is it just the 3x with the 2-5-10?
Yeah, maybe 35, but yeah, 30 or 35.
Okay, so this guy makes it to your immediate left, 85, folds back around to you. You call, so pot's like maybe 185, right?
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
The flop comes King, Queen, 10 with one club, the 10 of clubs, and I lead out for 50.
Right. This whole hand is sort of a little bit, as we go street by street, it's a little bit odd, but so I'm going to put King of Diamonds, Queen of Hearts, 10 of clubs. You've got Queen, Jack of clubs here. You open this guy 3 bets, you call, and you lead out here on King, Queen, 10. What is your thinking here by leading out?
I, like I said, not too much background, but I had been kind of sun running in this session. I had been leading a lot of flops with a lot of different ranges. I was almost all regs in the game outside of this guy. And he had kind of talked a little strat to me and asked me why I was leading so many hands. And I said, I just like to lead. So it was kind of just a little metagame-ish, but so I let out for the small bet, and I just kind of wanted to see where he was. I had not seen him 3-bet at all. So
yeah, but here's the thing though. There's a difference between like leading out when like somebody like makes a single raise pot and like 4 people call and you like complete in the big blind or the straddle and the board comes out, 6-5-3 and you lead out. There's a huge difference between that and leading out into this board in a 3-bet pot. Now, with that being said, your hand does have a lot of equity. I just don't necessarily know what this will accomplish. And if you're not necessarily say, I don't know how often. Most people would probably 4-bet kings, but honestly, this deep in a tight configuration, kings is not always a 4-bet. It might be half and half. And if kings is not a 4-bet, then queens and 10s aren't 4-bet. And, you might even have more ace jack than this guy does. So it's a little bit interesting in that fact. The way that the deepness and the tight configuration sort of affects this board. But what are you trying to accomplish by betting here 50?
To be honest, I thought he had ace, king, or aces. I guess he can have kings, but I thought the 85 was a little small. So either way, I kind of, it was just a situation where, and this is kind of why I sent it in, because I do not like the way that I played the hand, but it was just a hand where I flopped a ton of equity, and I think I have a big post-flop advantage. And I actually was planning to re-raise him when I thought he was 100% going to raise this bet. He does raise the bet, and then I flat. So I kind of went away from the strategy that I had.
I mean, I don't know who this guy is, okay, in terms of like how he plays your opponent, but obviously, if I put myself in your opponent's position, and I'm just saying, I'm sure your opponent, I mean, we're not the same player, but if he's capable at all or any type of like understanding what's going on, he's probably not. The only hands that he's raising with here are sets. You think he's going to raise with aces when you donk lead here on king, queen, 10 or ace, king?
I actually did think that he would. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'd only probably played with him for maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, but every hand that he had won had been at showdown. He had kind of played a certain way. He had done a lot of little micro 3-bets and micro raises on flops and turns. So I thought that obviously he can have sets. Without going too much into the rest of the hand, if I could have it back, I probably wouldn't lead. I would just check call.
Yeah, I just don't see. I really don't see what the point. I mean, again, I'm not going to be too hard on you. Sure. Your intention was to bet 3-bet, but then you didn't. How much did you raise to?
So I made it 50, and he made it 125.
It's pretty small. Okay.
Yeah. And I think when he made it to 125, and then I kind of went back through the hand in my head of saying I probably should have just checked this, and then I ended up flatting. So I flatted the 125.
Right. All right. So the pot's 435 now, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And then the turn is the 7 of clubs, and I check.
Okay. So you pick up a flush draw here. King of diamonds, queen of hearts, jack of clubs, 7 of clubs. You have queen, jack of clubs. So now you have a pair of queens. You're open-ended, and you have a flush draw here. And you could actually, I mean, even if you were up against, say, even if you were up against a set, because you've got the queen of clubs in your hand, you could have as many as 14 outs here against a set moving to the river. Actually, aces is probably because it blocks a lot of the hands, probably not the ideal. You'd almost rather have a set because you wouldn't want some of those outs blocked. If he had aces, you'd have more of the things blocked. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I check and he bets 300 and I make it 950 and he tank calls.
Let me ask you this question, okay? I mean, I know you pick up I know you pick up equity here on the turn, right? So again, it sort of goes back to the flop here. Like when somebody raises this board and now you check raise the turn, I know you're trying to look strong here, and the only hands that are just super nutted would be like ace jack here, right? I don't know if you have jack 9 opening and defending here to a 3-bet. But when this guy raises and then bets 300 into 435, do you really think that he's going to fold here to a 3x check raise? What is he doing this with?
No, I didn't think he was going to fold. Honestly, like I said, a lot of this hand became, it was definitely misplayed for one, but then it just became more mental than it became about necessarily my hand. Now, obviously my hand has a ton of equity, but before this hand,
no, I don't want to, please, no. I don't want to go into it before. I want to read a comment here. Mike Vincent says, anyone just open, fold, queen, jack suited under the gun, 9-handed. You're not going to get on a live stream, Mike Vincent, if you do that. Anyways, all right, so you make it 900. So villain bets 300, hero 3 bets to check raise to 950. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and he calls.
He calls, okay.
Yep.
So 1900, pot is now 23.35. Okay. And so we're going to the river now. Looks like you guys have put in 1100 of your stack. So, I mean, you probably have 2400 left. About a pot size bet left, something like that.
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
So the river is a 6. I think it was a hard. It was a non-club 6.
Okay.
And I checked.
Okay.
And he had made a lot of micro river bets that he said he called them protection bets. And he bet 400 here.
Protection in position when he can just check it back and take a showdown?
Yeah, so that's why he had said it a couple times. Like I said, I don't think he's played a lot of poker. So, and I think that played a little bit too much into my thinking. But yeah, he bet the 400. And his demeanor really changed when he bet the 400. He got very quiet. He had wanted to talk throughout the hand, and he just got very quiet and totally shut down. And I made it 1850.
Wait a minute. You check raised the river here to 1850. Again, go back to the whole thing of how much strength has your opponent showed here? You bet 50 into a 3-bet pot on king queen 10. He raised to 125. You called. You checked the turn. He bet 300. You check raised him to 900. He called. Do you really think that he's betting one pair here at the end when you check on the river after he calls your 950 check raise on the turn?
I think it's highly unlikely that he has one pair. I agree with you.
So I would not try to bluff this guy off of a set. Just fold.
Yeah. I mean,
I think sorry.
It's like a 95%. And that's part of the reason why I called this in was because I know I misplayed it, and I was really looking more for the spot of once I get to the turn and I misplayed what I did on the flop. I think the biggest issue is me making it 950 on the turn. I think that's really the biggest issue. I mean, obviously the river would never even happen if it doesn't go this way, but so I made it 1850. He tanked, and someone not in the hand called clock. It was a fair call. It was at least 3 or 4 minutes. And he called, and he had ace king.
Really? He had ace king. He bet the river. He called your check raise, and he bet the river with ace king. I mean, obviously, if you show it down, I mean, if you saw it, right?
Yep.
That's very, very surprising to me that he's betting at the end here with ace king. I'm going to say like 19 times out of 20, it's just going to get checked at the end. And the thing is that here's the thing. What I would say about rec players, and I don't mean to be too hard on you. I'm talking about your opponent actually. But most of the time, Zach, I'm sorry, I was looking at your name. Most of the time, rec players are going to take in between sort of showdown value hands in big pots like this and just check it back because they don't want to face a check raise. It's sort of a subconscious way that they patch the leak of really not being capable of betting and folding. So this is actually really surprising that he's betting a hand as weak as ace king. It doesn't really surprise me though that he called because he just doesn't want to fold, but I'm shocked that he bet ace king. But again, I would say you don't do really a whole lot of leading. Let's take away from this hand. You don't do a whole lot of leading here in a 3-bet pot on king, queen, 10. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Check raising the turn, again, like the reason why I would just take my equity is because he's shown a lot of strength by raising the flop and betting turn. And then when he calls the check raise, forget it. Just make your hand. And if you don't, just check fold. I mean, that's really what my take is.
Do you think I need to check fold that like 100 out of 100, or can I do something on that river?
Pretty much 100 out of 100. Some people are saying, did he have ace king of clubs?
He had no clubs.
Okay, because I mean, ace king of clubs would have made sense because he's still in there with in there with the check raise. Yeah,
I was shocked that he had the ace king, and I actually was surprised he called. Now I know how much money is in there, but I thought at that point he would have just put me on a set. That's just what I thought. So that was my thinking when I went for the river bet, and when he tanked that long, I was like, okay, he's not calling with one pair, so either he's tank calling like he did before with like a middling set, or I'm gonna get this through. And then obviously he called. So
I think it's very, very bizarre that he bet with one pair. That is not common. But thank you for the call, Nathan. Yeah, I appreciate it. Again, guys, we got 2 more callers here. If you want to get in the show, shoot me an email, bart@crushlivepoker.com, bart@crushlivepoker.com. Let's go to our next caller here. This is Josh. Hello, Josh. You're up next.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey.
Awesome. Well, I got a hand for you. It's a 1-3-800 cap game from TCH Dallas.
1-3-800 effective, TCH Dallas.
Well, this hand will be 1K effective, but it's an 800 cap game.
Oh, it is an 800? It's not a match to stack game? The 1-3?
Yeah, no, they just started this last week, I believe.
So you mean capping the 1-3 game?
Yeah, they didn't even have a 1-3. They got rid of it after like the first month. It opened in October, and they only had 1-2 and 2-5.
I mean, it's amazing because I take a look. I'm sitting there like on the weekend. I take a look at Poker Atlas because TCH Dallas is on Poker Atlas, and they're just like, I mean, it is unbelievable what I see. Yeah. Of course, I know the owner. I was actually texting him about it last night. I assume like all the tables are just always full all the time. Is that basically? I mean, the wait list every time I look at the thing, it's just crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
I mean, the thing that I would say, and I always tell people this, and like I think that they think that I'm trying to like keep them out of Austin. Austin's the worst place to play poker in Texas compared to like Dallas and Houston and San Antonio. I mean, they barely get this game off. It's crazy, except for the live stream. So, all right, so 1-3 1K effective, 800 max buy-in. Okay, in Dallas.
Yep.
Okay.
And I'm on the button with Jack of clubs, 10 of clubs.
Okay.
And in this hand, there's a $6 straddle on.
Okay.
And basically, because they just started this game, this is more or less a 1-2 table with more money on it. These players are all very awful, and it's amazing. Mm-hmm. For example, 2 of the guys that are in this hand, like the villains of the hand, the big blind and the straddle, they're cold calling 3 bets with hands like King 7 suited and King 10 off out of the blind.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is $6 straddle is on and middle position limps.
Okay.
And it folds to me on the button, and I ISO to $25.
Okay.
A tight passive old guy in small blind calls.
Okay.
And then I would call him a whale. Big blind raises to $60.
So 1 limp to 6, you make it 25 on the button. The small blind calls. The big blind raises to 60, kind of small. Okay.
Very small.
Yep.
Then the super loose straddle, he calls, cold calls.
Okay.
Middle position calls.
The initial limper, right?
Limper.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
I call.
Okay.
And then the small blind folds.
Small blind folds. He calls your 25 and then now he folds.
Yeah.
Now this is a spot where, again, the whole thing is like there's so much dead money out there. I mean, when you say the big blind is sort of a whale, even still, although you might get into stack depth problems, like I kind of want to 4-bet this because there's so much dead money out there. Now, if you're going to say that he's just never, ever going to fold here, if you make it like 250, you do get into some weird stack sizes. But I mean, you've got this dead straddler call, the limper calls, you have the small blind in there. It's just a big, big overlay. It just doesn't seem all that strong from the big blind. With that being said, I do sort of understand sometimes too the flow, I would say, a little bit of the game sometimes where you want to get these guys post flop. You've got Jack 10 suited. It's just something to keep in mind. So it's 4 ways, is that right?
Yeah. So okay. So the pot is $265 4 ways.
Okay. All
and the flop comes Jack of spades. 9 of clubs.
Yep.
4 of diamonds.
All right, so you flop top pair, you've got a backdoor club draw, right? With Jack 10 of clubs. Yep.
So the big blind now checks. And then the straddle bets half pot. He bets $130.
The guy that called, right? Initially, he just called, right?
Yeah, the guy that cold called the small 3-bet.
130, is that right?
$130. Yep. Half pot.
130. Okay. Yep.
Middle position folds.
Okay. The limper folds. Yep.
I just call.
Okay.
And then the small blind calls.
You mean the big blind, right?
I mean, sorry, big blind. Yeah.
Okay. Big blind calls. So the big blind, who's the guy who 3-bet, it's kind of weird, right? He 3-bets. You're calling him a whale, so it's probably not an overpair, right? You block like top set. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if it's like ace king. You know what I mean? He's overcalling with like ace king here if you're saying that he's a whale. But these are fun hands because it takes me back, like I said, to the mid teens, the mid 20 teens, and when I was playing at Commerce, and I fully acknowledge that there are many training sites and many competitors of mine out there that might do some of the computer modeling and some of the theory work a little bit better than me, but I will challenge anyone in this spot here against these types of players in terms of giving the best advice for a live hand. So this is obviously a fun one. We've got this whale in the big blind probably overcalling with 2 overcards, right? You've got top pair and a backdoor flush draw. Straddle is leading out here for 130. You could be in kicker trouble, but you do have some backdoors and things like that. So 130 fold call, 390 here on the flop. So it looks like the pot is 655. Yeah, 655. Yep. Okay. All right, let's go to the turn. Yep.
Turn is the ace of clubs.
Turn's the ace of clubs. Okay, interesting. Yep.
And surprisingly now, both of the big blind and the straddle, they check.
It's interesting because when you sent this one in, for whatever reason, maybe I slightly misread it. I thought that the whale had c-bet the flop and now checked the turn. And I was like, oh, well, he probably doesn't have an ace because not a lot of whales aren't going to do that. But this is the guy that I just said maybe he's got like ace king or something like that because he overcalled on the flop. But so the turn's the ace of clubs. You pick up basically a flush draw now with a jack, and they both check to you. The pot's 655. Yep. You have what, 600? No, excuse me. You've got 800 left about effective with these two guys. Is that right?
Yeah. Basically 810.
Well, that overcall here from this guy, this whale in the big blind, here's my thought process. The only reason why I think I'd probably take my equity here. I think I would take my equity here and check it back. I don't know if the only reason why you would bet here is to get the straddle off of like king jack or queen jack or something like that. It might be a little bit optimistic here with the stack sizes that you're going to get through both guys. So I think I very well might just take my equity here. I mean, the worst thing in the world is to get jammed on here by the whale if you bet on turn. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, the other types of hands that this guy might have from the whale might be like tens, but you block that, right? So it's interesting because there might be a fair amount of this like weirdly overfloated ace X. So I think that I would probably take my equity here when it gets checked to me. What did you do?
Yeah, I checked. I didn't want to get.
So here checks it back. Yep. All right. Let's go to the river.
So going to the river, pot still 655.
Yep.
And it's King of Hearts.
King of Hearts. So you miss, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And they both fairly quickly check.
So the big blind checks. The straddle checks. And it is over to you. This one's really, really interesting because you can credibly represent Queen 10. And as I look back, because I remember I was telling you this in the email, when I look back on the flop, it's great that there's no front door here. Why do you think that it's great that there's no... If we're thinking about bluffing, why is it great that there's no front door here?
I think especially like villains think that, oh, when the front door flush misses, like, and people bet, they just think you assume you missed the flush draw and have to bluff now.
Right. And so with no front door, what is the obvious draw on Jack 9-4 rainbow?
Yeah, Queen 10 open ender.
Right. Queen 10 would be the most obvious draw, right? Of course, like you could have 8-10 or something like that. So it would just really suck. And here's the other thing too. I don't know if the whale here is checking. I don't think the whale's ever checking ace king if he ran into it. The straddle guy, I mean, I guess he could have king jack some of the time here. You lose to like a queen jack type of hand. I think it's going to be probably very, very rare that anyone has two pair here. And for that reason, I think it's probably close, but I think that your hand probably plays best as a bluff here if you can just get all one pairs to fold. But again, it's so much different than the texture being a front door. I don't think I would do this with a front door texture. I think sometimes you actually might have the best hand here, but probably it's better to play this as a bluff. It would just suck if like the whale has like ace 5, and I don't know how whaley the guy is, but I mean, it would take a hell of a whale here to like call this river with like ace 5 of spades, like some sort of backdoor like ace X, right? Because again, there's no front door. And Queen 10 gets there. And I think you get the straddle off of a lot. So I say go for it. Pot 655, you have like 800 left, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I might just might just move all in, to be honest with you, because I think that they probably have a lot of mediocre. I mean, here's the thing. Sometimes like betting pot can sometimes be, or 500 or 600 here might even be a little bit more scary than all in. This is, again, sometimes where the theory, you might want to just break from theory a little bit instead of trying to represent being polarized to give somebody a worse price. Yeah. The idea is to move all in. Sometimes you'll actually get called more frequently because they'd be like, why would this guy bet like this? But I say go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Both of these guys, if they would have had a good hand after the turn check through, like even if they had, I think a good ace, like ace king, ace queen, and they like turn 2 pair or whatever, I think they both would bet. So and after the whale called in the turn, I agree with you. I just never think my jack's good very often. So because I blocked Queen 10 and I ripped it. And just was hoping to fold out, weak ace X.
Yeah.
Maybe even like a hand like King 10 or something, that called with the gutter or something out of small blind.
Well, yeah, I mean, those hands, King 10 should fold, right? Queen Jack should fold, right? And again, it's just that whales will usually play imbalanced here where they'll bet off with like aces up. So I think that most of the time, if you can dismiss 2 pair from anybody's holdings, I think this is probably going to be played better as a bluff. What happened?
The whale in the big blind, he folded.
Okay.
And then the straddle tanked for what seemed like ages. I pretty much never call clock when I have it and when I don't have it.
Yeah.
I don't want to give away anything, So So I just tried to sit there pretty stoic, and he just took forever and just kept talking to himself out loud, like, would I ever do this if I didn't have the stone nuts?
So you didn't tell me. So you didn't tell me. I don't know the result of this hand. Let me try to put this together. Did he tank call with King Jack?
No.
Oh, okay. What did happen?
No, he just keeps talking to himself like, would I ever? Because I've been pretty tight but very aggressive the whole time, and didn't make any crazy bluffs or anything. And he just was like, would I ever do this if I didn't have the stone nuts? And eventually he just said, no, I don't think you do this if you don't have anything but the nuts, and called.
He said, I don't think you would do this. He said, I don't think you would do this with anything but the nuts, and called.
No, he said he doesn't think I would do this if I had the nuts.
Oh, if you had the nuts. Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, he thinks I would. Yeah, he thinks I would bet smaller, like, to get called.
Okay, so what happened? So he called. What did he have?
He had ace-10 off.
Wow. So he started this was what I thought that the whale would have here. No, I'm serious, because the whale was the one that raised pre, right? The 3-bet pre, right?
Yes, and this guy cold called a 3-bet with ace-10 in the
and then he started to bet on the flop, and he check overcalls the turn, and now he calls at the end. I mean, I guess he blocks like a 10, but I don't. He also blocks the other draw, which is 8-10 that misses, right? So that's, I don't know. I mean, that one should have gotten through. I mean, I think this is exactly what you're trying to fold out, right? I mean, you don't check this hand back because you feel like an idiot, when it gets to showdown and somebody has ace-10, but it's actually the straddle that might be another whale, actually, that maybe you haven't actually taken into account. Right. Yeah,
I didn't know he was going to be that sticky. I mean, I'd seen him made obviously some pretty light calls because they're all just complete fish. But for me, the reason why I sent this hand in, I was more or less thinking, like, is this too optimistic of me to think that I could get two really bad whales, more or less, to fold here on this river? Or is this, is this still a good play? And most of the time it's going to work. I wasn't really sure.
Well, I mean, it's not that whales, you can sometimes get guys to fold. I just expected the hands to be a little bit different. But yeah, the more guys that are going to hero you and then you put them together in a hand, the less likely it is that it's going to get through, right? I mean, if you've got two guys that are going to call 80% of the time, what are the chances that one of them are going to call? You know what I mean? Like, it's one of these things. So I don't really mind the play, though. I really don't mind the play. I mean, there's people that call all the time that punt they call this show, right? I mean, you listen to the second caller. No, I don't mind this one at all. I appreciate it. Thanks for the call.
Well, thanks, Bart.
All right. Last hand here. Last minute ad here. How do you pronounce your name, sir, from Arizona?
It's Raimana. You can just say Rai, though. It's easier for everybody.
Raimana. Okay, Raimana.
Yeah.
You are the last caller here.
Gotcha. So, yeah, we're playing 2-3, 300 spread limit at Talking Stick. I believe it's a $600 cap buy-in. I never buy in for the cap, though. I just buy in for 300 usually.
Okay, so this is an interesting hand because it has a little bit to do with mental game, which is, well, you're a last minute ad here too. For some reason this week I had trouble. I got a lot of submissions and there were some decent hands, but a lot of people just didn't respond, and then there's some cancellations. So I appreciate you doing a last minute ad. It's not necessarily heavy on the strategy, but there will be some pot odds in here. But I want to get into some of the mental stuff here too. So I assume if you're buying in for 300, how old are you? Are you in college or something? Or
yeah, okay. I'm a college student. I play poker mostly for fun. I'm like a rec player. I kind of treat it as video games where like it kind of scratches my competitive itch. So I want to get really good, and then sometimes I can make money. So
right. Okay, no, totally. So, but sometimes what I will see at the table sometimes is younger guys will get a little bit too emotional about things that might happen at the table, and it might
definitely
sort of affect their game. But okay, so this is a 2-3 game spread limit, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So we're in the big blind. Okay. We have 550 effective, and I have Jack 10 of clubs. all of the players. So I'm the effective, or I said that wrong. I cover all the players that are playing in this hand. So it's relatively short stacked for Talking Stick 2-3, honestly. Okay. So pre-flop action, the under the gun player limps.
Okay.
+1 min raises to 6. And immediately, I don't really know how to interpret this at all. But it goes, yeah, I was going to ask you like what, like how you react to that. But so either way, we get the hijack calls, small blind, flats. I call the 3 extra in the big blind.
Yep.
Do you think this is kind of like an insta 3-bet spot in games like this?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, that would really, and I don't want to go too far down this road, so I'll give you a general answer. It's tough for me to answer that without actually visualizing the stacks, because the answer could be yes or no. So where it would be a spew here is if, for example, and you'll see it in the, because I assume this is probably the smallest game in the room. If one of these guys has like $70, which you'll often see like in these smaller games, or especially if 2 guys are really short stacked here, like with less than 100, I think that it would be a spew to 3-bet because you have no playability post and a guy will just go with his hand. Now, Jack 10 might do fine. But there's nothing going on here post. So you have to always be very, very wary of the stack sizes in these small games. So to answer your question, like if you were in a game with like 1K stacks and all of a sudden some guy like min raises and it goes call, sure, absolutely 3-bet away, but you gotta pay attention to the stacks. You know?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely weird because there were definitely a few of the players in this hand that have like similar stack sizes to me. So like 300-400, but then there are, like you said, like the people who are in here with like $100-200, and I really don't like flatting at a position in the big line, but I did it.
Well, anyway. I mean, you have a really good sort of suited hand here, and you're getting an incredible price. And the other thing too, what I would say is that this actually, I do get a fair amount of tournament submissions here too, but I don't really take them all that much. I don't really find them interesting. But the shorter you are, the more offsuit high cards go up in value, and that's true in a cash game too, by the way. Like if you had like king, queen off, king, jack off, I'd rather have those hands than jack 10 suited when everyone's playing like very, very effectively short. And that's why you'll see a reflection of that in tournaments. But okay, so you call and it looks like it's 1, 2, 3, 4 ways. Is that right?
And then the under the gun player who limped initially, he calls as well. So it's 5 ways.
Okay, so 5 ways.
So, yeah, about $30 in there.
Yep.
Flop comes ace of clubs, king of spades, 8 of clubs.
Now, you had told me in the email that the guy from +1 was just like totally clueless, you thought, or like any 2 type of scenario?
He was like the only player at the table who was like, he wasn't afraid to like raise or 3-bet, which generally, like just from the 4 hours that I've been sitting down, like nobody was really putting anybody in tough spots. Like there wasn't a lot of 3-betting, wasn't a lot of check raising. And he was kind of the only guy who seemed capable of doing that, but he also would show up with random stuff.
Do you remember about how deep he was in this hand? The pre-flop raiser?
He was about, I'd say, like I barely covered him. So maybe like hit $450, $500.
Okay, so I'm gonna put him up as 500 here. So he's pretty deep.
Yeah, he's pretty deep as well.
So, and again, you do have the under the gun limp. So like I said, in a standard setup, I probably would squeeze here pre. But what I was going to say, and the reason why I remember you bringing this up is, or bringing this up in the email is that you flop a big draw here in the sense that it's ace, king, 8 with 2 clubs, right? You've got jack 10 of clubs, so you almost have a royal, you have a straight and a flush, straight draw, and a gut
exactly.
shot. But what I would say is kind of similar to this guy that was leading in with the queen jack in that 3-pot earlier. In a theoretical sense, and then we'll take a look at the reality, you wouldn't want to be doing a ton of, say, check raising with a draw on a board like this when the pre-flop raiser probably c-bets multi-way into a lot of people, because theoretically, the theory is you don't have aces, you don't have kings, you don't have ace-king. You're probably not check raising with like ace-8, so... that's the theory as it goes. Now, with that being said, this is a very small stakes game. People don't have any idea why they are betting. And you might get a guy to, say, bet fold like ace-7 offsuit or something like that. I don't know. I think what's going to happen here is the preflop raiser is going to c-bet, but like if somebody else bet here, I would very seriously consider check raising and attacking them, because you know that they don't have ace, king, aces, or kings. Now, some people might say I'm a lunatic because the guy's never folding like ace nine off. I mean, maybe. I mean, that could be. I like to do this more on a dynamic board where the top pair could change, but those are sort of my thoughts. I'm assuming you started this off with a check. Is that right?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so small blind checks,
and I totally understand what you were saying there. But yeah, so small blind checks, I check. Yep. The under the gun initial limper checks, and like you said, +1 continues for 20 here.
So he bets 20 into 30.
20 into 30, which is pretty normal.
Okay.
I mean, that's just kind of how it is at 2-3. So, and then he gets the hijack and the small blind to call.
So the hijack and the small blind call.
Yeah, and I really didn't know what to do here. This is kind of like the biggest point in the hand for me, because I don't know if I'm just supposed to call down here and try and realize my equity, or
well, I would never fold if you're ever considering that.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, the king high and the queen high flush are out there, but you have a straight draw too. This is also interesting because a lot of these guys are going to be piecing. Here's the thing. I can kind of go either way with this one. This is similar to the pre-flop squeeze. When you've got a couple of guys that are calling in here, you have such an overlay in the sense that this guy bets 20 and then it goes call, call. Again, the strongest hand someone's going to have here is like 8-8. It's unlikely because of like a lot of pre-flop stuff and just people not wanting slow play like on sort of a wet board like this. So when it goes 20 and then it goes call, call, I mean, the pot's $90. Like, if you check raised here to 90, let's say the pot's $90, which it is, right? If you check raised to 90, you're risking 90 to win 90. If that works 50% of the time, you have an immediate profitable bluff. But your hand is even better because we can't think of MDF this early on in the streets when we think about this, because you have you have two cards to realize your equity. That's why sort of it seems to me like probably the most profitable play is to sometimes squeeze here. Now, I think you would always get the guys on your right to fold out. The question, though, is that, is this guy ever going to fold? And, is he going to rejam here with ace king? But I kind of want to play this aggressively with all that dead money out there, too. You never know. Some things can happen that are good where the small blind has queen 5 of clubs, which really kills your hand and he folds when you make this play, even if somebody were to raise, to go all in. It's a little bit of a high variant type of play. So I don't hate the call, but I probably would check raise here given the call.
Oh, you mean you don't hate a check raise, but you'd probably call?
No, I think I would probably check raise. I don't hate a call, but I would probably check raise with all that dead money out there. Yeah.
That was kind of my thought process too. And just because I feel like people were doing kind of weird things on a flop that like wouldn't normally hit the range, like they'll bet big into a lot of people just because they're like, I want all of you to fold because I don't like dealing with so many of you. So 20. It was kind of weird, so I check raised to 80 here, which might be small. I'm not sure on like the sizing I'm supposed to take there, just with the two callers and that there's the under the gun player to act behind me.
I mean, I might go to like 90 or 100. Just, again, I have to sort of visualize the stack. It's really all about stacks and how much the other guys have. The other guys had what, like 300 or something like that?
You're gonna have to forgive me for not remembering.
No, I get it.
I know it was varying stack sizes.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That's why like it really sort of depends. You know what I mean? Because sometimes guys will like rejam on you. You know what I mean? It's just like one of those things. I'm gonna put him on 300. So you make it 80, okay?
Yeah. So I make it 80, and surprisingly, it folds all the way around.
So the pre-flop raiser folds. Great.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
So awesome. I'm feeling really good here. And so this is where everybody in the chat is going to start cringing at me. This small blind who is directly to my right, he's an OMC, nice guy. And he's been like showing me all of his hands every time Like he has to fold. He's like, look, I had ace king and I raised and I didn't hit again. And then he just folds and like does stuff like that. And he's been doing this with me all night. So he shows me ace 10 off.
So it folds around in the small blind and he's tanking and he shows you ace 10.
Yes.
Okay.
He shows me ace 10 off. And
Okay.
he's done this multiple times, not with me directly in the hand with him.
Yeah.
So I know him showing that to me is like, oh, I fold, like it's over.
Right.
You know
okay.
what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Which is weird, but he's gonna fold.
Right.
So then I show him back. I say, gotcha this time, and I've got Jack 10. You know. And then so he
didn't do anything, and you showed him his hand. You showed him your hand.
Yeah, he didn't throw his cards past the line, so he didn't fold.
Yeah.
From like the sense, like from the actual sense.
Right.
I just knew he was gonna fold.
Uh-huh.
So I kind of was like, I haven't really gotten a chance to show him like a hand in any spot. So we had just been doing it. So I just showed it to him.
Well, dude, lesson learned, at least on this part, right? I mean, we had this video back like last summer where the guy lied about his hand. And I don't know if you saw that video. It was, I think it's titled like the worst angle in poker history, where there was a guy from Tijuana actually who basically ran a huge bluff, told the guy he had aces, and the guy mucked, and he was lying about it, and then he showed the bluff afterwards.
Oh,
no,
God.
The guy called him though. He moved all in. The guy called, so it was a called hand. And then he lied about what he had without revealing it, and then the other guy mucked, and then he actually didn't have what he said he had, and I thought that was in pretty poor taste. But you can't show the guy without him saying, he's got to either say I muck or he folds his hand, right? But I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
We all make mistakes. So,
No,
okay.
completely. And I totally meant, like, I mean, I obviously shouldn't show. I'm just thinking from the spot, like, it's just kind of like the table dynamic. And I'm like a more for fun player. You know what I mean? So I'm here like, oh, gotcha. And he's an old guy. Like, it's whatever. But so we both know each other's hands now.
Okay.
But we're both still in. And he hasn't made an action yet.
Okay.
So then he decides to bet 50 into me.
So wait a minute. So you show him his hand and he calls?
Or he calls. He doesn't bet into me. He just calls.
So why, if he can see your hand, why doesn't he just move all in?
Because he's just not great at poker.
Okay. No, I get that.
honest.
Right. So small blind calls. So now the pot is 8160. It's what, like
it's
230
about
or
230.
something? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and we both know each other's cards, and the entire table, like half of them are mad at me for check raising because they had me beat, and then the other half are like, "What are you doing? Like, this is
right."
It
I do
already
like
is
the
a
check
shit
raise
show.
though. I do like the check raise. Okay, so he calls. He can see your hand. Okay, move to the turn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this turn is a 7 of hearts, so it doesn't give me any equity.
Actually, it does give you equity, doesn't it? This is the
Jack
other thing.
10.
This is the other thing that you didn't realize when you sent me in this email.
Oh, I guess I do have an app.
Hey, you pick up a double gutter, dude, to a queen, to a
I
9
do.
now. Yeah.
You're
This
right.
is the whole thing with the
yeah.
whole like you're getting
Mhm.
such a direct price. So now what does he do?
So now he leads into me for $50.
And what you said in the email, again, this is sort of a little bit of a mental call. I'm just thinking about poker. So small blind leads into you for $50. Okay, so he can see your hand. You have picked up a double gutter. He knows you have Jack 10 of clubs. The board is Ace King 8 7. You pick up a double gutter. There's a front door flush draw out there. What this would be like? I would be so happy if I were you right now. Like, this is like the best thing in the world. The only thing that's better is if he checks to you.
Yeah.
He's betting
absolutely.
50 into 230. You're getting 6 to 1. You have 15 outs against the guy, right? To a queen, and he's not even sharing any of your cards. You can see what he has to a queen, to a 9, and any club. If he doesn't have a club, if he doesn't have he can't have the 10 of clubs in his hand because you have the kind of clubs. You could call a full pot size bet here. Like, here's the thing. Like, if you know his hand and he's got ace 10 off and he doesn't have a club in it, let's say he only had 230 left, right? Because after you check raise the 80, I put it up where he started the hand with 300. I'm not exactly sure how much he has here, but let's say he's got about a pot size bet left on the turn and he moves all in on the turn. For anything less than pot here, you can call. You should call. You have the direct price 15 out of 44 unseen cards, we see all the cards. You have one chance in little less than one chance in 3, like 1 in 2.9 of hitting. You only need about 2 to 1. You would be getting it here. I have no idea what this guy is doing, but I would be ecstatic. Now, the thing in the email is that you said that this tilted you for some reason.
Well, I was just upset in the moment just because of like the dynamic that played out. Like I'd never had anything like this happen before. And I kind of thought, I mean, obviously it's poker, right? But like if I'm the old guy in that spot on the flop, like I know I folded. Like he's not showing me cards because he's going to call me, you know, or raise all in. So I would have just folded anyway, even if the person next to me is really stupid, like I was in that spot and did what I did. Maybe I'm biased.
That you wouldn't have called, you mean?
No, I wouldn't have called or like raised all in, or I would have just like conceded, knowing that you bluffed me before I actually fold. You know what I mean?
Here's my take on this, and I'm not like this too, and this is just my opinion. Especially when I was younger, I almost think that younger guys have more morals and ethics sometimes than older guys as they become more grizzled and play in like these games for like years and years and years. Because I mean, I sort of am of the same feeling as you, especially when I was younger, when I would see somebody like try to angle me when I was like 23, 24. I didn't even understand what was going on. I'm like, this guy's trying to, like, why would he do that? Like and then like as people get older, I don't know if they get more bitter or they just think like I'm going to beat somebody, but it doesn't surprise me this guy did this. It doesn't surprise me as a young guy. That's what your reaction is, but you got to basically keep your head in the game. What did you do? Did you end up calling here on the turn?
Oh yeah, I absolutely called. I wasn't really thinking about the pot odds or just giving me the double gutter in that moment. I was just like, I just told him, I was like, I feel like you owe me this one.
Well, obviously your emotion has gotten a little bit of the best of you if you're missing the fact that you picked up an additional equity here on the turn too, right? With the 7.
Yeah. So I call, the river ends up bricking out. It's going to be the 8 of hearts. So
okay.
I don't get much there.
Yep.
I just fold when the 8 comes out because he decided to bet into me too. It was an interesting dynamic.
Well, you have perfect information, right?
Yeah. So he starts counting his chips out, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna call you, dude. Either way.
Here's the way that I would look at this. Okay, I understand that you think that maybe you sort of put yourself in that spot, and you wouldn't do it to that guy, but he did it to you. I would take a step back and look at this and like, you are, even though that unfortunate thing happened to you on the flop, you are making so much money by calling the turn with what happened with perfect information. He knows you have Jack 10 of clubs. You know he has Ace 10. He is losing so much money on the turn by making that bet size. This is how I would think about it, that whatever, it doesn't even matter what happened before that. He's making such a huge mistake. It's like you got to detach yourself sometimes from the results of these things. I've never really had a mental problems with people when people will sort of they'll tilt because of a bad beat. It's like when you get it in with aces versus kings against somebody, right? In $1,000 pot, let's say you're all in for 500 each. You're only 82% to win. Okay. That means that your pot share of 1,000 is $820. You're going to lose sometimes. If you win aces versus kings, you are running ahead of of expectation. So if you lose aces versus kings, so what? Like, I never understood why people would get upset about this. And that's why I would be so happy about this particular situation, because this guy is making such a massive mistake by knowing your hand and choosing that bet size kind of on the turn. So I don't know if that makes you feel any better, but
yeah, no, I mean, I immediately wrote this hand down because I immediately thought like, oh, I can't wait to like email Bart and have Chat call me an absolute fish, which they are. Shout out to you, Chat. But I just thought it'd be like an interesting spot just to kind of get what everybody's take was, because I've played 20 hours live, but I've played way more online. So I'm definitely not used to like kind of the live dynamics that go on.
You got to protect yourself. Here's the thing. Like, you definitely have to protect yourself. There are more people that are, I would say, have borderline questionable ethics in live poker than people that have really good ethics. Now, I am always and sometimes people think I'm crazy the other way, but you're not going to see anyone really playing sort of professionally at this level. But I think a good poker professional will sometimes let recreational players off the hook in certain situations that are borderline gray in the rules that could sort of go either way. That's why I'm constantly asking people that bring in like rules questions, who's the opponent? That's how it would make me sort of feel. But at this level where no one's really playing for profit, there's probably going to be way more questionable ethics. You know, there's going to be people who are playing for fun and they don't necessarily care, but you're not going to run into somebody that's necessarily going to give you kind of a break. And I've always said this too about life. Like, I think the scariest guys that are out there are the guys, and I know a lot of them in poker, that actually are quite rich. They don't need the money and they'll fuck you over anyways just to win when the money doesn't even mean anything. Like, some of the worst anglers I've seen are actually rich guys, which is just like on a whole nother level, right? They're whales too, but they're just, but anyways, no, I appreciate the call. Thank you very much. Thanks for the call.
Of course. Thanks for having me on, Bart.
Yeah, no worries. That's going to wrap it up for us, guys. It wasn't super heavy on the strategy calls this particular week. It was kind of a weird week with just a lot of people not necessarily getting back to me, and that was partially my fault because it was a little bit late with the responses. But if you do want to get on the show, shoot me an email, bart@crushlivepoker.com, bart@crushlivepoker.com. That will get yourself on the show. And of course, I will always take Crush Live Poker subscribers and give them priority. I got to run, guys, because I head over to TCH, which will be on in about an hour and 45 minutes. So we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.